I do want to see this video. Okay, it's mold time. Concord is dead. Time to address the elephant in the room.
So the elephant in the room, coming off of the wild, crazy success of Concord, is whether or not PlayStation is going to change their approach to live service games. Because at the very least, whether you think Concord's a really good game, whether you think it's a really boring game, or you think it's bad, doesn't really matter. No. The effect and the conclusion you should reach is that something didn't work, right?
Who knows?
Thing did not work properly.
I do have to say though, from Sony's perspective,
no,
they actually made the best consumer-friendly decision they could have made, where they refunded everybody's money completely, and they said, "That's it, we're done, we're sorry." This was the most consumer-friendly option they could have gone with.
The game is even okay, and everything else goes well. It should.
I mean, Sony is like a major company. If they ever want to make games again, they kind of had to do that, because who the fuck is ever going to trust Sony ever again? Like, I know if I bought Concord, no, it was easy. They only had to refund 25,000 people, yeah. If I bought Concord and I knew its association with Sony and the game was shit, and then they closed the servers within how long of the game being out? Two weeks? Yeah, I would want a refund too. I'd be really mad. I'd be like, okay, I'm just never going to buy another game from you guys again, Sony. If you guys just sell games and then close the servers 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Have a chance of success. But something didn't work here. And Sony's approach should be to figure out what that was. Now, I think it's a combination of many, many things. For one, just at the outset, I don't think anybody was particularly intrigued by the concept of the game. I think it looked kind of cringy to
Everything
begin with.
about it was
so
bad.
People were already kind of like, Yeah. And then they found out they were going to have to pay $40 for it. Really not a fan of that. And
I'm going to have an unpopular opinion. I don't think that the $40 price tag played even 5% of the role of the game not being successful.
I actually agree. That's $40 is Overwatch sold for $60. And it was wildly successful. Why? Because the game was good. Diablo sold for $70, and its launch was very successful. You can say that Diablo 4 was like mediocre, or you didn't like it, or was garbage, or whatever. You can't deny the fact that a lot of fucking people bought it. When a game is good, people are willing to pay the $40. The problem is the game has to have hype, and it has to feel fun and worth the price tag. The only exception to the rule is like MOBAs. For one reason or another, it's just hard to get people to pay money to buy a MOBA. But yeah, Helldivers 2 is a good example. I think that costed like $40. I never played Helldivers, so I don't know. So yeah, $40 I think is that price is fine. That price is totally fine. It's just that the game has to have hype. The other thing I think as well that's important is you can easily charge $40, $50, $60, $70 if everyone around you wants to play the game. I feel like the number one reason why I spend money on games is because friends of mine are playing games and I want to play with them. Not a single person I knew wanted to play Concord. Why would I buy it? I'm remembering now I didn't buy it. I saw the character designs. I saw the gameplay and I was like, this is boring. And also, no one I know is going to play this. I'm not playing this game by myself.
I don't think it had really anything to do with it. And here I've got 2 points on a graph that I can give you guys for why I agree, why I think that. Number one, Helldivers 2. Everybody bought the game. It was still very popular and it costed $40. Pretty much a 1-to-1, right? And here's number two, which is the fact that Concord had a beta weekend. They had 2 beta weekends. They had a paid beta weekend, and then they had a free beta weekend. And the paid beta weekend, because it was the first weekend, had more players than the free one. So even when the game was in a completely free state of play, people still chose
Wait,
to not
wait, the moles is cooking. Hold up.
play the game. If that doesn't prove it, then what does?
And then the narrative started building and building that nobody was playing it, nobody was interested. And once that narrative takes hold, your live service game is dead. Because nobody's going to spend $40 to get into a game
It's dead.
that they're not going to be able to play in a few weeks
Exactly.
because the player count will be so low.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that. So they're
This
just gonna
happens
sit
to
up-
MMOs, right? It's like the circling the drain, the death spiral. Was an Overwatch $60 at launch? Nobody cares about the money. People are gonna again. People will find a way to get the money together if the game is good enough. Was Overwatch 40? I remember it being 60, but I don't really remember, honestly. Maybe it was 40. Overwatch launch was hype. Yeah, and to be honest, that was years ago, right? So the culture's changed.
Which is, you know, what's fucked up. Overwatch came out 8 years ago.
on the sidelines. Because why would they? Why would they throw $40 away effectively? So I think there were many, many things that stacked into Concord's demise. But now the question is, how does Sony handle their stuff moving forward? Because bear in mind, they have other live service games that are coming in the next few months, next year, next 2 years, that are actively in the works. Like these are coming and they're going to be influenced by Concord, no doubt. So there's a lot of things to...
That guy donated and it said Concord player base equals capacity of the plane Concord, which is really fucking funny because just like Concord the game was discontinued, the Concord plane was also discontinued.
To kind of stack into this. Money laundering.
It's so good.
Is that the grand strategy?
Yeah.
So I think Sony at this point should be looking at some of the competition. And they should be looking at games like Suicide Squad, which launched at 70.
This is a competition of who can lose the most money.
Narrative vignettes, certainly.
Yeah.
They tried to sell it as being, it has the most cutscenes of any game we've ever made.
Wow.
I mean, granted, there's only 2 hours of gameplay, but, and we repeat that for dozens of hours across the seasons, but still, whatever, shut up. But they should look at that and acknowledge that. Skull and Bones, also been memed on a lot. It's actually performing the best on Steam, at least.
That's
I've
crazy.
never even heard of this game.
1,500 players. That's a lot of people. I mean, for only $100 million for the first quadruple A game, 1,500 players. Wow.
Of any of these games, and it also is a huge game on console and on I mean, huge is generous, but it's much bigger on console and the Ubisoft launcher. So
Sure, I would assume that
they
probably has
presumably
like
have a
10K.
lot of people actually playing Skull and Bones right now on a Friday morning, in the US, which is honestly pretty surprising. I did not think.
Sure.
If you
How many people play
rewound the
Valorant?
clocks to November of last year, I would have thought that Skull and Bones would probably be the most dead of all of these games, but no, it's actually performing the best, which is really funny. Yeah, the quadruple A
I
investments.
can't see why. That game looks so terrible. But I think also, I don't think that people understand how much negative feedback can affect a game.
Oh, this is just for Steam? That sucks.
There are games that effectively get aborted. They're not even released yet and they're dead. They're people have already made up their mind that the game's dead. And I've seen it happen with probably 10 games this year. It's actually crazy. Blue Protocol. Yeah, exactly. Blue Protocol. I mean, I think Throne and Liberty is going that direction too. It's really problematic.
What is this? Aborto.
And the reason why is that first impressions and people obviously you have these super casual gamers, but those casual gamers can't, by the nature of the fact that they're so casual that they heard about Diablo 4 because they saw a commercial for it on TV, those people aren't really going to stick around and spend a lot of money. They're probably just going to buy the game and that's about it. So you don't build a community on those people.
Doubt, didn't they? And then on the flip side, other games like Deadlock, which isn't even announced yet for...
Dude, I feel so bad that I haven't played this.
I'm not gonna lie, Deadlock also, it has a lot, a lot going for it being a Valve game. people love Valve. I'm sure like the haters will speak up right now and be like, I personally actually hate Valve. They killed my dog and they called me ugly. But the Valve buff is real. There's a lot of people who will innately just love a game that is from Valve. I'm sure the fact that seemingly Deadlock is also really fun. But yeah, I also really need to play this game. I just don't really like shooters. I like shooters. I should play it.
Yet I need to play this game.
For like, it doesn't have a release date announced yet.
I've had a lot of friends of mine tell me I need to play.
They did reveal it technically, so they did do like an early development reveal drop mini trailer kind of thing.
Fun, very fast game. Yeah, I watched a little bit.
Like it was at 90,000 players while it was still unannounced. That's ridiculous.
Insane.
That's ridiculous. But it's because you've had streamers that have played it and have fallen in love with it. Shroud, famously.
I don't even agree with that, because before Shroud even played the game on stream, it was still going up in players. Because like they finally lifted the NDA on the game, but even before...
Have you guys seen the Deadlock trailer? No, I haven't either, actually. Wormy. Stop. Wormy. Stop. Why can't I find the trailer for this game? Why is this the only thing I can find? Wait, this is not even a trailer. Where's the trailer? I'll find the trailer, guys. The spooky start screen.
Before the NDA, it already had like 40,
there isn't
50,
one?
60, 70,000 people playing. It's Valve. Hey. I mean, I think that the reception of CS2 has been pretty lukewarm. I'll be honest. I think people have had a pretty negative reception of CS2. Compare that over to Deadlock, and Deadlock has had a great reception.
Tweeted out, or didn't tweet it, it was on a stream. He said that he has no doubt that Deadlock is going to be the biggest game probably in the world within months of it launching. Because he's like, it's honestly that fun. It's just very, very good. Whether that ends up being true, I don't know.
I wonder if
he's
he's
much
right.
more qualified to talk about these types of games than me. But at the very least, it shows you that it's not about marketing dollars. It's not about,
it's about game quality.
How you frame it.
That's right.
Like it's at the end of the day about the game.
That's
if
right.
the game is good,
the
and
value proposition. That's the only thing that matters.
Oh, this game looks good.
You'll enjoy the game.
Like visually. Sorry, this is the best I could find. This is the closest thing I could find to like a trailer. Just somebody showing off the abilities of the characters. This game looks good. It looks clean. Dude, I have so much respect for games that have clean UIs. This looks so clean. Oh, dude, this trailer is going to be so fucking good when they finally put it out. Oh, dude, this game is going to be so much fun when it comes out. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. If you need an invite, I can spot you. I might need an invite, dude. It actually is kind of sick. Dota times Overwatch. Yeah, I saw some other people calling it like Smite X Overwatch.
You'll get 100,000 people in there during closed access
Fucking
testing.
insane,
Meanwhile,
dude.
Concord, when they were doing marketed open betas, they couldn't pass 3,000. So
Yeah.
you would hope that Sony would look at all this and try to learn from their mistakes. But I think a lot of people were assuming that Concord was going to be the game that
I feel like multiplayer games is just really not where Sony excels right now. I think Sony really excels at creating great, like, single player experiences.
Wormy.
And I think even if you look back
Wormy.
at it, like Xbox, this is just me,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
This
in
is
the
just me. Nintendo is the great family PC or family console that always has the, you know, like good single player games and some good multiplayer
Why can't I think of a single Sony game? What the hell?
games, right? It's like the best of both worlds in a lot of ways. And it's also innovative. Every single new console is different. And then Xbox is like the multiplayer console, right? You got Gears, you've got Halo, and this is talking about like a long time ago. You've got Modern Warfare, right? And like, so you had all those like big badass games.
I think my problem is I've just never played a Sony game. This is actually the one genre of game that I haven't played, probably because a lot of these games, I think when they came out, they were initially on console, so I didn't get to play them, and I did because I didn't have a PS anything. I never had a PlayStation. Like I've never played any of the Spider-Man games. I did not play Last of Us. I did not play Uncharted. I did not play Bloodborne. Because I only play PC games, so I don't actually know. Yeah. Okay.
And then so
Saying God of War sucks is brave of you. Me? Or did he say it was? What? Did Mr. Mold say God of War sucks? Oh, not you. Oh, okay. I was like, I just haven't played it. I've heard God of War is really fun. I just haven't played it.
Sony was the console where you had a lot of these like really cool single player games, things like Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter. Now we're getting God of War, right? And all of that, like racing games. Yeah. And so like I feel like that's always been kind of like the distinction, right? Final Fantasy, yeah, Metal Gear Solid. And I know a lot of these games came to other consoles, but I feel like Sony has always been the king of S-tier single-player experiences.
They learn from the mistakes of other live service games like Suicide Squad and Skull and Bones, and we're going to try and approach this game entering into a competitive market, and they were going to make it free to play and try to approach it that way. But they just didn't. And I've gone back and forth on why they tried to do it. There's sort of the cynical approach, which is the $40 price point was just an attempt to get some quick cash because they knew that this was going to flop, basically. Because basically the options were, if this is when, you know, this is our timeline, they could release it free to play and then hope over time that paid cosmetics and stuff generate some good amounts of...
Totally disagree with this opinion. I really, really don't agree with this. The reason why is because at this entire period of time, here's the other line that he needs to remember. The fixed cost of operating the game. And that red line goes like this. And in fact, it goes like this. Because inflation and other prohibitive costs that cause the game to cost more money. So, yeah, I actually...
Wait, sorry. Wait.
That this was going to flop, basically. Because basically the options were, if this is when, you know, this is our timeline, they could release it free to play and then hope over time that paid cosmetics and stuff generate some good amounts of...
Totally disagree with this opinion. I really, really don't agree with this. The reason why is because at this entire period of time, here's the other line that he needs to remember. The fixed cost of operating the game. And that red line goes like this. And in fact, it goes like this. Because inflation and other prohibitive costs that cause the game to cost more money. So, yeah, I actually don't agree with this. I think that Sony could realize that. They could see the writing on the wall. They know it better than probably anybody else does, and they made the right call.
Money, but it starts out very, very low. I mean, you basically aren't making any money.
Yeah.
If anything, more realistically, it starts
This is a chart about raking in revenue, not costs.
down here and then takes off because there's operational costs and all that.
But
and if you factor
dude,
in
the fixed costs, man, the fixed costs of server maintenance, like just game updates, everything, like all of that machine is millions and millions of dollars. You're never going to make that money back. And it's like, I know it might sound like a good idea. Maybe one day it's going to work. Like in like 8 years, in 10 years, there's a 5% chance that we could not lose $1 million, but we have to invest, like basically you have a 5% chance to get $200 million in 10 years, and you have a 95% chance to lose $100 million right now. And I think that Sony said, you know what? Let's just lose $100 million right now.
Maybe the mold is getting to me. The thing with Sony that you have to understand is that Sony is not just a gaming studio. They also make movies. They also create consoles. They do a million different things. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that they make or sell or products or services that they create that I don't even know about.
I think that's what happened.
Like, think about all the people who buy Sony controllers that have never bought a console. They just have the controller because they're PC gamers and they like what the Sony console or the controller brings. Right? They're not even a studio, really? Yeah. Memory sticks. I mean, again, cameras. How could I forget? They make cameras. I have a Sony camera. The thing is, with Sony, they have so many products and they're a multi-billion corporation, right? They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if I'm not mistaken. TVs, etc. Yeah. They have so much going for them. It's okay for them to eat the cost of a video game because it's just another operating loss. And at the end of the day, it's bad for brand awareness and it's bad for brand recognition for them to have a game fail so badly that they have to close the servers in 2 weeks. Like, they don't want that to happen, obviously. But you have to understand that they can just write that entire thing off as a loss, and it's just a basically tax write-off for the rest of their industries, for the rest of their products. Like, it's not a big deal. It's the same reason why Twitch is still running, even though it's at a loss and Amazon owns it. Amazon already makes so much fucking money. Like, they're just swimming in money. They're fine with Twitch continuing to lose money for a long time. They're totally fine with that. Same thing as like the Warner Brothers scrapping Coyote versus Roadrunner. Yeah, exactly. 100% exactly. They want to have successful items in their portfolio. They don't want to have unsuccessful items in their portfolio. So when Sony has a flop, they just cut it immediately. The money is almost not relevant when you're that big of a corporation. It's almost like not relevant because they want the shiny brand prestige. It's the same. It's not exactly the same reason, but when you think about that, think about the fact that like luxury brands literally burn their bags and their shoes if they don't sell them by the end of the season. They would rather destroy the remaining product they have to keep the brand recognition up and to keep the status of the luxury brand up than give it to other people. Or then give it to corpos that usually sell it at a cheaper cost. They don't want homeless people to be seen using their stuff. Not even homeless people, just like middle class people. Like Juicy Couture as an example, right? Juicy Couture was like super giga expensive in the early 2000s. And then the company started doing really poorly after the recession. So they started like mass selling all their excess product to like TJ Maxx's and stuff, which means TJ Maxx is going to mark it down like 50, 60, 70%. There's no more artificial scarcity. The middle class and lower class are wearing the product. Now rich people don't want to wear it anymore, so the cost goes down. Why burn it? Can't they reuse the material? It's cheaper to burn it. It's cheaper to burn it than to burn it or like landfill it, excuse me, than to try and repurpose it. Not just luxury brands, grocery stores. Yeah, even on a smaller level, grocery stores doing it as well. It's sort of the same concept for the people, for Sony. They would rather the game just like fail and they burn it down to the ground than be associated with it for even one more second. They're like, okay, moving on to the next project. Anyways, yeah, you guys get the point.
I think they made the right call.
Cost of like development, then it certainly is much lower, and it's more like this. So they could do that. That's usually how free-to-play games work.
Totally different situation, but you're right.
They tried to charge $40 a copy, which starts them a bit higher, but their hope is that with the cosmetics and everything, it can take off. Maybe at a more shallow rate, because it's like people are less likely to spend $40 on it, but whatever. And they just decided to do this route. And some people are like, oh, they're just trying to get, this gap made up because they don't think that this is going to happen. Like none of this on this side of the equation is going to happen because it's going to shut down. Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
You've also got to think about this as inside of the context of Sony's reputation. Like right now, there is, I think, a very strong console war going on.
I agree that they can take losses. However, this one was massive. 9 figures is huge even for a corpo like Sony, isn't it? Yes and no. So like at the end of a quarter, right, when Sony has to report profits or losses or whatever, or even at the end of the year when they have to pay taxes on this shit, let's say, just totally random numbers, let's say off their tech products, so TVs, console, their physical console, their fucking washing machines or whatever the fuck else they make, their cameras, all their technological products that they make, every bit of physical product that they make that's in the realm of technology, right? Let's say they made $10 billion. Oh, okay. They have to fucking say, oh, that's Samsung, whatever. You guys get the idea. They have to pay taxes on this $10 billion. They absolutely have to pay taxes on this $10 billion. Right? Obviously, there's like, ways to reduce some of the tax obligation or whatever. But yeah, for Sony, because when Sony fucking files their taxes at the end of the year, everything that they own, all their subsidiaries, they all fall under the roof of Sony. If Sony gets to say, hey, Concord that we spent, let's just say they spent, I think they spent $200 million off of it. Let's just even say they spent $1 billion, okay? Let's say they spent $1 billion and they got like 5 players. It's better for them to shut down the server, call this an entire loss, say like, hey, this is the operating loss for this. We only have to pay taxes on $9 billion now, okay? By writing this entire thing off as like a loss, it reduces their tax obligation for the rest of their industries. And in terms of like marketing and brand recognition, it's not necessarily a bad idea for Sony to just close the server instead of letting this like dog shit game continue to run and continue to have the 5 players that want to play the game keep playing it. So they can continue to keep it open and continue to pay for the servers and the advertising and the team to update it and put out patches and fix bugs and keep dumping money into it. Or they can be like, actually, no, we're not doing this. Write this off of our taxes here.
Because Microsoft and Xbox has released probably one of the strongest, like, set of game offerings in the future that I think we've seen in probably 5 or 10 years. Like, they're releasing and coming out with all these insanely good fucking games, right? And I think also Microsoft is setting itself up to be to be the first big platform for cloud gaming. Like, unironic cloud gaming. Not Google Stadia cloud gaming, but cloud gaming that works. I think it's going to happen. Like we all know, right? In 100 years, we're going to have cloud gaming, right? Everybody probably agrees on that. But where in between 100 and 0 are we?
Why?
I don't know. Probably pretty close. But I think that Microsoft knows that, and they're building the infrastructure for that right now. I think Sony knows that they are the king of single-player experiences, so they're building into that right now. And I think Nintendo knows that no matter what they do, there will always be people that buy Nintendos because they're cool, and Nintendo makes great games, and all Nintendo needs to do is just keep being innovative, and they will exist forever. That's it.
Nintendo. I'm just a Nintendo hater. I was just a broke boy in my youngin' days, so I never got into Nintendo because I couldn't afford the fucking $200-$300 console and then the $60-$70 games every single time that a new game came out. So now I just like never played. I played like 1 or 2 Nintendo games and that's it. It's okay, there's still hope for you. Well, now I feel like I've missed out on so much of it. I don't have all the nostalgia. I don't have all the Nintendo nostalgia. So the idea of like buying a Nintendo console today is just like, I will never. Nintendo games weren't $60 until the Switch. What are you talking about? Yes, they were. They absolutely were. They 100% were. I remember when I was very excited that Pokemon Black and White came out, and that was my first Pokemon game, and it was $60. And I borrowed somebody else's Nintendo, was it a DS at that time? Was it the 3DS at that time? I don't remember. And I played it and I was like, I mean, that was fun, I guess.
Me, though, I think
I feel like you'll love Pikmin, though. It's basically resource management. Yeah, I would love Pikmin. I wasn't able to play the Nintendo games, so now playing a Nintendo games is like, feels wrong. Also, the thing is, the only games I would ever play on a Nintendo would be like, maybe the Pokemon games. Maybe the Fire Emblem games, and like maybe the Pikmin games, and that's it.
old adage, never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by incompetence. I think
Also, as a PC gamer, as a PC supremacist, you can't mod Nintendo games, and that makes me mad.
that holds true. And I think it's reflected by Sony's approach with a lot of other stuff, which is that they just approach things in the way that they always have, which is that they sell you a game at a certain price point, you buy it, and if you like it, you play a lot of it, and then they can maybe make some extra money. I just think that the executives are not that interested in doing the free-to-play model. They know what they're doing when it comes to selling premium games to people. At least they thought they did. And so they
do.
thought that
They do. They're the best at it.
that could carry it forward. But after Concord, it's pretty clear live service games in competitive markets, you cannot do that. It doesn't work. And that brings us to the elephant in the room over at Sony, which is a game that they saw a lot of potential in, coming from a studio called Haven. Haven is sort of an up-and-coming team. Notably, they have a lot of things, you know, lots of job postings and stuff, but they were purchased in March of 2022 by Sony. You can see in this press
this is
release,
about the new game.
Sony Interactive Entertainment announced today that it has entered into an agreement to acquire Haven Entertainment Studios, also known as Haven Studios, a Montreal-based development studio formed by acclaimed developer Jade Raymond, founder of Ubisoft Toronto and Motive Studios, and one of the creative forces behind the blockbuster Assassin's Creed franchise. And this is true. There is a lot of talent here that they know what they're doing. They've made some of the biggest franchises in the world, which will make...
I really don't even agree with that either. Because, like, think about how much talent there was at Arcane Austin. And it was all squandered when they failed with Redfall. So, like, if you get a lot of people together, it's like you can have somebody who's an amazing baker, but then you hire them to be a mechanic and they don't know how to change a tire. I think that's what's happening, right? It's a different Arcane. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Arcane Austin, what I'm saying is that, like, you can't have a game development studio and then have them totally shift what they're making and then expect the quality to transition over.
The reveal of what they're working on, all the more baffling. But you can see, founded in March of 21 with an investment from Sony, Haven Studios is led by a premier team of game creators with over a decade of experience collaborating on some of the industry's most popular games and franchises. Haven Studios is currently working on its first project, a new live service experience for PlayStation built upon a systemic and evolving world focused on delivering freedom, thrill, and playfulness. Quote, Haven is an emerging studio with an exceptional team of talent, and we're delighted to welcome them into PlayStation as our first game development studio in Canada, said Jim Ryan.
Jim Ryan is gone now, right? I feel like Jim Ryan announced he left PlayStation like about 8 months ago to a year ago. I think that there's a reason why he left. I think that he left because he pushed Sony in a live direction, in a live service direction, and at the point that he left, they could already tell that that direction was damaging to the company. He was asked to leave. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Jimmy, James, he's back. He's everywhere. The studio's focus on creating an original AAA multiplayer game will not only flex the power of the PlayStation 5, but will further expand upon the diverse catalog of gaming experiences that can only be found on PlayStation. So with Concord, they bought the studio after, again, they said that Concord took them 8 years. They bought that studio when Concord was very far along. They saw the game, thought it had a lot of potential, and then they bought it.
Jim is just farming else.
With this game we're about to talk about from Haven Studios,
this is the new one.
The studio was founded thanks to money from Sony.
This YouTuber's background is so sick, by the way.
They put cash up to form this studio, so they've been in since the very, very, very beginning.
Minus
With
8 years,
Concord, they kind of had the get out of jail free card of like, oh, well, we didn't really make the game. We just like published it and, you know, we bought them. Yeah. But effectively we just published it. They made the game though. We didn't have that much direct involvement. With Fairgames, they've been involved since the studio was founded, which is interesting. Especially when you see what it is. In this announcement, they say with a team of over 60 employees and growing,
he'll probably
Haven
show it
Studios
soon.
will be the 18th studio to join the PlayStation Studios family. The day-to-day operations post-acquisition will continue to be run by the management team at Haven Studios in close collaboration with the PlayStation Studios leadership team. Terms of this transaction, including the acquisition costs, are not disclosed due to contractual commitments. We don't know exactly how much they spent on it. It could be $100 million, could be $50 million, could be $200 million. We don't really know. And we haven't really seen many leaks as far as I'm aware of how much they spent on it. But they've spent a lot.
Probably a lot of money.
So what is this game? What is this game that they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on and
here
represents a major investment?
We saw this earlier. Let's look at it.
Surprising. As you can see, CGI, not actual gameplay.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Bear in mind, the goal of this should be to make a unique live service game. And these guys are from Ubisoft, okay? So so just ask yourself if this looks kind of...
Dude, I really do feel so bad for all the people that worked on this game. Because, you know, they tried so hard to make it good, but, like, fucking executives suck dick, dude.
Ubisofty.
It's bad, guys.
You want to know about us? Seems like everyone does these days. It's simple. Too much money and too much power is held by just a few people.
What commercial is this for? Is this for Concord? Chat. Woketivist gaming. Trash. Woke nonsense.
Yeah.
So, we decided to do something about it.
Act now.
Let's
This
go.
is a different Sony game? Oh, this was a flop? A different flop?
Yeah.
I'm something like you, my drink and drive to work 9 to 5s when I was in high school.
Man.
Shoes here don't come out till June.
Man.
I'll crop you. Married to the game, said my
Man.
dudes got a window seat like Erica Badu.
I like the mild. This is like diet racism almost. The hip hop, of course. Of course it's a hip hop track. ...
This is the new big game from Sony, guys. This is gonna be it.
There was more. Wait,
Hey,
there
guys.
was more. Rap music equals good game.
This is gonna be it.
They like their hip hop in trailers. Another hip hop music.
If you ain't got it, then you can't flaunt it. Pull up Lamborghini and Sonic.
I mean, the game looks... Sorry. This looks fine, but I want to see the gameplay?
Take it till you make it.
Let's
Man.
just say the reception was not great. This was revealed May of 23. And even back then, the reception was not great. Eat the Rich and the game is the most... The reception was not great. Eat the Rich and... And even back then, the reception was not great. Eat the Rich...
Sorry, I'm trying to find
Bitch.
the chat message. Son Frogs, the game.
And the game is the most corpo vision ever. The irony of a live service game based on eating the rich is levels of irony I can't comprehend, and I'm fueled by it. What's even more baffling is that the
Look at the next one.
odds are very high that they charge like $40 for
Look
this
at the
one as
next
well.
one. It's
Because again, I don't think you
Oh,
need to
God,
attribute
please read
the
it.
like. I
Yeah.
don't think you need to explain the $40 price tag for Concord by saying,
Did this game also close its servers?
oh, it was just them trying to milk everybody because they knew it was going to flop.
Uh-huh.
I think that the people that made that decision were just so full of themselves, they thought people would honestly buy it and then still engage with it a lot. I just think they're that out of touch. I really think that that's...
Oh, it's not even out yet? Oh.
That's all you have to say. Thanks to all our players, but we're unfortunately ending support 1 year later vibes to it. Another Concord...
I don't know if it'll last a year.
But
with
it's
the
not
same-
even out yet. What? What? I thought the trailer was fine. What?
Same fate. You can take the devs out of Ubisoft. You can't take the Ubisoft out of the devs. I'm
Man.
almost 40, but even I am getting, how do you do, fellow kids, vibes. Eat the Rich creates a game...
Oh my god, this one chatter is so rent-free. Hassan's favorite game, lol. What
It's
the
a
hell?
service with seasonal battle pass and millions of microtransactions. Eat the Rich, gamers. Just ignore the fact that we showed our game in a mega corporation.
I just like I never even thought of like all the irony with this, but like reading the comments, oh my god, this is so
real presented and pay us $70. $1 billion company makes a game about how rich people are bad. You sure want to go through with this after Concord, Sony? Concord just came out. You're next. The consumers keep you guys afloat. I'm yet
Yep.
to see a scenario where a gang of diverse high schoolers fighting the corporations is not cringe.
Let me think. A gang of diverse high schoolers fitting
This is such a dog whistle. Diverse high schoolers.
corporations not being cringe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Persona? I didn't play Persona. Ah, you're right, bro. Cyberpunk. Yeah, Cyberpunk was really cool. I don't know if they were high schoolers. Didn't she wait until after he did she spawn camped him? So I don't think that really happened, but yeah.
I also can't think of an example of that.
Yeah.
Again, I agree with Techno. There's nothing wrong with a diverse cast of characters. It's when your game can only be defined by a couple of taglines
Yeah.
that are not particularly interesting to begin with. People kind of check out and are like, okay.
I think that people just see too much real life politics in a game like that, and it makes them think that it's inauthentic. So, like, the game is called Fairgames. It's about eating the rich, and then it's showing like the amount of money that people have, and it's stealing stuff. I think it's just it's very off-putting to it's off-putting to me at least.
Well, you're rich. Of course it's off-putting for you.
Is there? But like, what about the
The
game? though?
checkbox game? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the deal with this. It's made by a very successful team of developers from Ubisoft. The vibe I get from this is very Watch Dogs. I mean, especially like this back here at the very end. If that doesn't look Watch Dogs to you, I don't know what will. But it seems very Watch Dogs inspired. They described it as having like an evolving world or whatever. My guess is that it's something where there's
Well, of course
like,
there's an evolving world. That means that
Someone
there...
in his chat said it's off-putting to anyone with testosterone.
there's a battle pass and they change one mechanic in the game every 45 days.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I know what that means. We all know what that means. We've played games like that for sure.
multiple different mission types, and it's going to be something, I don't even know how to break this down. My guess is it's going to be something like this. Okay. We're going to have a series of missions that can be taken on. Okay. So you imagine this is like the UI, and you have all of these missions you can take on.
That's probably what.
And
what
each of these represents stealing from some billionaire. Okay. So maybe this is like,
I think that if
It's weird that people call this like woke when if you go back a few decades, like everyone was making fun of rich oil barons, like Scrooge McDuck, going after those fuckers was so American. It was so based. But unfortunately, people have no idea that they fall for propaganda and that and the fact that people are not immune from propaganda, they don't realize they've been propagandized to think that this is propaganda. It's really sad. It's actually really, really sad. Like, you should not be... You're actually straight up brain fried if you think you should defend people who have more money than they know what to do with. Like, you should not feel sympathy to billionaires and be like, oh my god, a game about stealing their money, political! It's like, what are you talking about, man? Dude. You know those people are billionaires because they've, like, literally squeezed you dry. They're the only reason billionaires currently exist in our society at the rates that they do, I'm talking about the United States mostly, is because they get to buy up all of the property in your area and then raise your rent. Because they get to monopolize the grocery stores in your area and then price gouge your groceries. Like, and those are two industries that affect your day-to-day life. And a game talking about fucking those people over is too political for you? What? I'm just so confused.
If you can't steal from poor people, the game's not that interesting.
They're poor! What would you be stealing? I must have missed the clip. I must have misunderstood it. There must have been context. Yeah, you know, when when I'm at like a station, when I'm at Penn Station, I'm like, I look for the poorest person. I'm like, can't wait to steal their $5 tote. You steal from rich people because they have shit to steal. There's nothing to steal from poor people.
this
Which
is like...
I think that if you can't steal from poor people, the game's not that interesting.
Surely.
Because, like, this is for me, like, every time that I play a video game, one of the first things that I try to do is kill myself.
Pressing play made it make less sense. No.
You remember back in Shadowlands, it's like it was like the realm of the dead? Well, what happens if you kill yourself in the realm of the dead? Let's find out right now, immediately. Let's find. So what happens? Can you cut down a tree? Can you do this? And so, like, the more guardrails there are in a game, the more the game feels like it's not. It's no longer transcendent. It's no longer an experience. There's no immersion there. There's no suspension of disbelief.
Does he want like a mission that's like, make $5 on this very difficult mission? It doesn't even make any sense. This guy's describing this game as being a bunch of like mission-based games where you and a bunch of other people do this like heist. What would the heist be? Break into grandma's house and steal her favorite dolls. $20. Like, what's the... they want the game devs to write missions where you make next to no money? Doesn't even make any sense. And then he's like comparing it to limit testing, but limit testing in this instance doesn't even make sense.
When everything in the video game just reflects what you're supposed to think in the real world. It's just boring.
You know, the
What did he mean by this? Oh, do you think there's a possibility that companies keep greenlighting games with progressive messaging that are doomed to fail? So these brain rotted people associate progressiveness with failure? No, that's too tinfoil, even for me. I think way more likely it's that like corpos get pitched by like a progressive person, and they're like, sure, why not? We have money to blow.
equivalent of Bezos, and then this is like the Musk one.
Yeah.
This is the Ma
Bill Gates.
fortune, and then like you just have somebody for each of these. These are all like made up billionaires. Okay, and then what they'll do is like each of them will have a payout associated with them. So maybe this one's payout is like 20 billion, and then this one is like 15. And then this one's 8 and 3 and 5 and 2 and 11.
They should have one where you have to steal from like a Mexican cartel, and it's like the hardest mission in the game, but you get the most money. And it's like they have like tanks and fucking.
Why does it feel like I'm watching Sheen from Jimmy Neutron lifting up his doll and being and then being like what's the name? Captain Overlord? What's his name? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Ultra Lord. He's like, we should have a mission where Ultra Lord gets like $5 billion and then he takes down the entire Mexican cartel and then he It's so amazing. I love it. Dude, I love when grown men play with dolls.
Like helicopters
cute.
and shit like that. Yeah.